Hey, how's it going guys? Welcome back to the channel. Crimson Panda here with another Mercenaries priority upgrade guide. Now in today's video we're going to be taking a look at the very first 18 casters, and then we will do a part 2 with the remaining casters on Monday. So let's get straight into it and have a look at these first 18 casters and what abilities and equipments they need to be prioritized in the upgrading stage. Also, if you're a new or returning player to Mercenaries, first I want to say thank you and welcome to coming back to the mode. I know it's been a tough road for Mercenaries. If you could subscribe to the channel, I would appreciate it a lot. I'm going to be here to help you through all of your Mercenaries PvP mainly, and trying to get some meta comps out there and some meme comps as well for you guys to try on ladder once you have your Mercenaries upgraded to go into the fighting bit. So thank you again, and let's crack on. Okay, so the first mercenary on our list here is Anduin. Now, Anduin was a little bit difficult for a mercenary to upgrade because he has two different types you can play him. So he's obviously a holy character. So if you want to use him in PvP, then I suggest that you start with this equipment here, the Harmonic Mallet, dealing an extra 5 damage with Holy Nova. But if you want him for PvE, then I would suggest doing the Ring of Purity, putting him in a holy comp where they heal quite a lot. He is going to gain a lot of health and be very hard to kill for the AI. So definitely go for Ring of Purity if you want him for PvE, but go for the Harmony Mallet for PvP. As far as equipments go, you kind of want to just go in order with this one. You want to go with Penance first of all, Holy Nova second, and then go for Salvation last. If you're using this for PvE, then I would suggest just going for those two straight away, like fully do Penance and then fully do Nova back to back. You can also just go one by one if you're new and you're in the early stages of the bounties, or you can just go straight in for the PvP upgrade, which will be the Mallet, and then you just want to go Penance Nova mainly, and then go Salvation after, and then go for your last two equipments after that as well. So you always want to do your abilities first and one equipment depending on where you're going to be using that character. Next up we have Antonidas. Now Antonidas is a fire mercenary, and he was very good in a fire comp in the early stages. Unfortunately, not a lot of PvP action for Antonidas, but still a very fun character to put into a fire team, especially for PvE. Not the best one. There are obviously others that are good or better, but Antonidas can fill in the gaps if you don't have the mercenaries that fill in the other fire comp for PvE. He doesn't see any PvP play, so this will just be upgrading for PvE. So you want to be starting off with the Fireball, deals extra damage. Fireball is going to be your fire trigger for PvE, so dealing extra damage with that is good. Then you just want to go into Flame Strike straight after Fireball upgrades, and then the Fireball Storm, and then filter towards the other two equipments once you have all of those three maxed, and the staff for the extra damage on the Fireball as well. Next up we have Aranna. Now Aranna is a fairly new mercenary, and she does see PvP play in very unique comps to try and outspeed your opponent, or to do some wacky stuff in like demon or fell builds. Unfortunately those comps aren't popular at the minute, but they will be once Blizzard start doing balance updates, and hopefully turning down the heat on some of those meta comps that are out there, especially Trigors, Valeras and stuff like that. So let's say you want to use this for PvP. You're going to be starting with the Edge first of all, because this is going to be your first attack, and the equipments you're going to be wanting to do with this one will be the Unbreakable Backpack, because you're going to be using her in a comp where you want some spell damage. So if you're going to be using it in a demon comp, then you're obviously going to get quite a lot of spell damage from that, and that is kind of where you want to go with her. The Acrobat will be the second ability you want to upgrade, because being able to 2-speed swap positions is very fun and very hard for your opponent to try and counter. So positioning will be, you know, difficult for your opponent to do once you kill off a first mercenary, and then you're going into an Acrobat and switching positions. It's very awkward for your opponent. And then the 9-speed is a very good ability. It's just very slow, which is why I suggest doing this one third. So you would want to start with Edge, Acrobat, equipment as well, and go for the 9 speed after that. And then, as you can see, what I've done here, I've gone for the land battlecry gain 5, switch roll advantage against the Merc's current roll. Very good equipment as well if you want to use it in a different type of comp, which is why I've upgraded that one next. And then you've gone for this one last, which is enemies across this have -6. Still very good, but not used as much. Okay, so next up we have Archimonde. Now, Archimonde is a fairly new mercenary as well. It's a demon. Will definitely see play in demon comps in the future, and can be viable now if you queue up against something a little bit unique and not a ridiculously strong meta comp. Now, the reason I went a little bit crazy with this guy, and I have 2 equipments before my abilities, is because I really wanted to try and get a video out with him. So I tried to get him playable instead of maxed. So that's kind of why he's looking a little weird. But with my experience playing with him, the one I have gone towards is this one. So I've gone for the second ability where the fell weakness is permanent because of the Doomfire. Now, Doomfire is obviously going to give +5 fell weakness, deal damage after. You're going to be playing him in a fell build, so that was what was working for the comp. As far as the abilities go, I kind of just went in order. Finger of Death being the first ability you can use because everything else has cooldown and he opens up in a demon build. Reign of Chaos being able to increase the speed of fell damage is of fell abilities is really strong for your second turn or your third turn even following this one. And then the Doomfire was last. You were kind of using those in that order when you're in a match, using your other demons to try and keep him alive and other bits and pieces for the comp as well. So with this one, you can do what I did and go for like upgrading it, kind of like when you have the coins, just get it to a playable state. You don't necessarily have to get this to 5, this to 5, and then this to 5. You can kind of do what I done and slowly work towards all of them, because as you can see here, this is only 1 extra damage you're going to get, and this is only 1 extra damage, which will make the difference in the future. But if you want to be playing this one, then you can just kind of work on them all at the same time, if you know what I mean. And then the Codex is the other one I was doing. The Death Blow doesn't happen a lot, but I was upgrading that first for PvE, trying to get some sort of fell farming build. But that didn't work out very well. There's obviously better PvE farming builds. And then I haven't even started upgrading this one yet, but I do reckon this will be good in the future. After a friendly demon dies, restoring 6 health to friendly demons. We've seen that with other mercenaries, and it works really well. So it will be viable once those meta comps kind of slow down a little bit. Okay, so next up we have Barron. Now this is going to be one of your main PvE comps to farm. So I'm going to show you which abilities you want to upgrade based on farming. So the equipment is 100% going to be this one, the Mark of Conflagration, dealing extra fire damage or extra damage with Inferno. And Inferno is going to be your first ability you are going to want to max, because this is going to be the only thing you're using in the farm all the time on the way up. You can use it every turn. Fire combo deals 13 damage with the equipment, and then that gets to go after the 8 damage. So you're just going to be dealing a huge amount of damage with Inferno. So that is, those 2 there are what you're going to want to focus on. As soon as you have those 2, you can just go into any PvE with your fire comp and just farm the hell out of it and get loads of coins. So everything else, once again, stick with doing the other 2 abilities. You can do them in sequence if you would like, or you can just focus on one. It doesn't really matter. You're using Inferno, you're using a Mark of Configuration, and then you go for your equipments, whichever ones you want. You're not going to be using them, but, you know, if you want this character maxed, then just carry on just going towards those once your abilities are done and once your Mark is done as well. Next up, we have Blinkfox. Now, Blinkfox is seeing a ridiculous amount of PvP play at the minute. This character is in one of the top meta comps. The reason being is because it had a buff, and Arcane Fling is insane amount of damage to a red unit or any unit based on the comp you're going to be using, because of if you know about any PvP at the minute, then they have Medivh, which will crit anything. Your next arcane ability will crit basically, and this is going to crit any character. So this is dealing a minimum of 48 damage to something on turn 1, all thanks to Arcane Fang giving it 7 more damage. So the two you want to upgrade first for PvP would be Arcane Fang on the equipments and then Arcane Fling on the abilities. And then as far as the other abilities go, you can kind of, I would suggest doing Mind Thief, because this is going to nick an ability, and if you nick something good, it speeds it up 5 speed faster. Anything that you nick for 5 speed is going to be 0. You're not going to use it over Arcane Flinging unless there's a very unique situation, but it does get used. So this would be your next ability, and then you would focus on Mana Blink after that to make sure that your abilities are done. And then as of the other equipments, you're not really needing any quicker with mana runes, because the Mind Thief is doing enough. The Mana Blink is fast enough with the refresh being 5, and the tail, this kind of can work, has no cooldown if you nick something, so very good if you're using it in a different type of comp, but for the arcane and the meta at the moment, it is definitely these first two. So next up is Brightwing. Brightwing has seen play and does see play in PvP because of the fast 3-speed nature ability. So this really helps with comps with Valeera in it to be able to combo out Valeera. And this has been used on the bench as well because of the new Brightwing's ring. This, once a friendly merc dies, summons this and casts Fiery Breath at random immediately. So this is a way to cheat out more than 3 mercenaries versus your opponent. I have videos on that, feel free to check those out. Brightwing will probably be in the thumbnail if you're looking for it. But the one I feel that you should focus on is Brightwing's Necklace, being able to give your lowest health merc on the bench 15 health. It's a very good battle cry, especially if you're bouncing it back to the bench with a Zambi comp. Fiery Breath is the ability to start on. The 3-speed, deal 12 damage and buff your bench is very strong. It buffs the lowest health merc on your bench no matter what. There's no choose a merc to buff. It's always going to be the lowest health, so you can kind of manipulate that in some sort of way. Once the mercenary has more health on the bench, it will go to the lowest health after that. It won't keep focusing on that mercenary unless that mercenary still has the lowest health. So for example, Rattlegore will obviously get buffed constantly because of how low he is if you play that on the bench. Then you want to go with Pixel Dust because this is just a huge 4-speed heal. The healing 18 to all characters is massive. Pixel Pouch, very good if you are going for a heal type thing with Brightwing. There are other alternative heals that are better, but Pixel Pouch will be the next ability to upgrade if you're not trying to do some sort of weird bench shenanigans with the ring. And then Phase Shift being the last thing you want to upgrade, really, especially from the ability side of it. So in this case with Brightwing, I would probably focus on the Fiery Breath and the Brightwing's Necklace equipment, and then go Pixel Dust and Pixel Pouch after that, and then go Phase and then Ring if because that just seems to be the best way for this mercenary, depending on if you want this to be a normal staple mercenary to be able to use and not some weird shenanigans with the ring. If you do want it for the shenanigans, go for the ring first with the equipments, because this is what's going to bring it out off the bench once something dies. So next up we have Bru'kan. Now Bru'kan used to be a very solid mercenary. It used to be used constantly at PvP because of how good the nature synergies were when there were kind of like the beginning mercenaries. He's dropped off the radar a lot now because of how broken a lot of the new ones are and how in-depth those new ones are, because he has no sort of like battle cry or anything like that, or passive equipment. He's kind of like been pushed aside, but he is a very strong mercenary still, and if you're going to be using this in a nature comp in PvP, then my suggestions to you are to focus on Lightning Bolt first of all, because of the +3 nature damage is huge for nature, and that's just going to do it regardless of a death blow, which is very strong. And then you're going to focus on Chain Lightning after that, dealing 16 damage. Repeat this on 3 additional adjacent enemies, so that's huge damage for an AoE, hence the 2 cooldown. And you get to do it for 1 cooldown and 2 additional enemies if you upgrade the Lightning Rod. So that would be the equipment you want to focus on. And then you go Lightning Bolt, Chain Lightning, then Muddy Footing. Muddy Footing is very good. 4-speed, being able to slow something down, isn't quick enough if you're trying to stop a combo, but it is quick enough to stop a combo for the second turn if this survives. So Muddy Footing is still very good, but if you're using this for damage output, then Lightning Bolt, Chain Lightning, then Muddy, and Lightning Rod in between all of that as well. I would suggest doing Lightning Rod once you start getting your Chain Lightning upgraded, so that it actually does help with the damage. And then the other two equipments you don't really need in PvP, but still just work on them as and when you've got spare coins. Okay, so next up we have Captain Hooktusk. Now this is a pirate, and it was used a little bit in PvP trying to counter Trigor comps. So if you don't know what a Trigor comp is, it is where Trigor will do a 1-speed ability, and then every time an adjacent minion deals damage, they deal his attack to the enemy. So that does a lot of stuff, and that is really strong. Dealing extra damage for free in the meta is just nuts. So the way we were able to counter that was by doing the Captain's Pride, gaining 3 attack and becoming a fighter, and then the Turntable Strike on turn 1 will gain 11 health and swap roles with an enemy it attacks. So this would be a green unit. It would swap roles with Trigor, making that green and you red, so you'll be able to crit it and deal a lot of damage to it. So that was the way Captain Hooktusk was used. There isn't really any other way she was used. That was just like kind of a really strong tech card to go up against Trigors in a pirate build, because this would be a 2-speed thanks to your Anduin pirate, which speeds up pirates. So that was kind of where she was at, and I guess that's kind of where she stayed and where she still is. So if you're using this for PvP and you want to try and counter specific mercenaries, then that would probably be the way to go, making it obviously into a green to swap roles with it if you're fighting a red. So I would stick with that as far as upgrading. Go for Captain's Pride, Turntable Strike on the first one, then go for the Shiver Their Timbers, dealing 18 damage to an enemy. If it is casted, deal 25 instead, and then that swaps to a fighter after. So this is very good. And then the Cutthroat, because it's quick, it is okay. Changing to a Protector is a little bit scary because of the blues on ladder, but applying 6 bleed to him is always good, but never too strong really. So definitely just go in order with those ones, and then the Pride. And then as far as the other two equipments, you can do that as and when you have spare coins, because as you can see, I've not even used prop knife, and the Jolly Roger, the turntable given an extra 4 and affects all pirates is okay, but not better than being a green and just scaling herself. So okay, next up is Chi-Ji. Now Chi-Ji is a firebird, and this was the first mercenary which applied heal power. So heal power, what that does is gives you extra heals instead of the extra spell damage. So this is going to deal 14 damage and then give an extra +5 heal power, which means this will then be 15 heals and so on and so forth. If you're running it in a heal comp, it is extremely strong. When this came out, being able to manipulate those heals and turn them into damage, especially with Firestorm and other heal units, was really hard to kill mercenaries off. You always want to start with Blazing Band being the equipment you want to upgrade, because dealing 4 more damage and an extra 2 heal power is huge once that starts scaling. And you want to start with Blazing Song, because this is what's going to be able to help you do your healing power. Plus this is a 3-speed fire ability, which in the farming sort of PvE bounties you're going to be doing, you can sub this in for any other fire mercenary that you're not using, so that you can combo out that Barron on dealing huge damage. And then with the song, you can heal up your units. It's going to make your farm a lot easier if you add Chi-Ji, even if it's a bench mercenary, so that you can bring it off the bench and still have that fire combo ability ready. So very good for PvE, not so great for PvP because of, like I said, how messed up the meta is at the moment. But a strong mercenary, it was free in the event if you managed to do that. If not, then being an epic probably is the right place for it to be. So you want to kind of go with Blazing Band, Blazing Song, and then Inspire and Firestorm, kind of in that order. Upgrade them simultaneously, like kind of like as and when you have extra coins to upgrade one of them once your Blazing Song is at 5. So next up we have Cookie the Cook. Now Cookie the Cook is probably one of the most flexible mercenaries in the game, probably one of the most used mercenaries in the game. That being because you can put Cookie in almost any comp and it will do good. The reason being is appetizers at the start of game give friendly characters +9 health. The +9 health is actually insane. So if you have 5 mercenaries in a comp and you have no idea what the 6th mercenary is going to be, Cookie is always going to be on your radar. You're always going to be like, shall I just add Cookie, because it's just such a flexible mercenary. So with that being said, you're always going to want to do appetizers being the equipment. The other two are fairly useless. You're never going to use those. Fish Feast will be the first ability you want to upgrade. Dealing 10 damage to an enemy. Death Blow, giving 15 health to all friendly characters, is massive. The 10 damage can scale with nature, and it's just surprisingly fast and good to be able to snipe units. So at 2 speed, it's always going to come off the bench, so you're going to be dealing 10 damage to something that's already been out there fighting, so it's always probably going to be targeting something that's going to kill a unit, given that 15 health, which is huge. The appetizers are obviously giving your units health at the start of the game as well. Secondly, you're going to go for Cooking, because this is going to apply 10 bleed to all enemies and restore 10 health to friendly Murlocs. That will be just Cookie in this situation, unless you're using it in a Murloc comp. And then you go for Go Fish after that, summon a random fish. This is more used for PvE really, and if you're trying to like kill off beasts, if you have a task like that. Or if you're using the old school Karen Diablo Cookie comp, where Cookie is obviously going to summon a fish, you're going to speed that up with Karen, and Diablo's then going to kill the fish, which will then give you an additional death rattle from your opponent's side. So that's where you want to go with Cookie. Very solid mercenary. If you pack this, which I'm sure you will because it's a blue, then yeah, definitely prioritize upgrading this mercenary. Okay, so next up we have Drek'Thar. Now Drek'Thar unfortunately doesn't see a great deal of play in PvE or PvP. That being said, he can be a tech card if you're running a Valyria comp. Now the reason that is because of the Glacial Blade. +6 attack after this merc attacks a character, frees them. So this can actually be used to your advantage, obviously, because Valyria is going to speed him up. The only problem behind that is that you're using Drek'Thar. So there's other things that work better with Valyria in comps. So the Blood Frenzy is going to be the first ability you want to upgrade. Give your Orc 6 attack until the end of the turn to attack a random enemy. It's random, which is where it sort of hurts you. If it wasn't random, this would be 10 times better. But this is by far his best ability, being able to attack and free something off. That's where you want to go with it. The Spirit Guide and the Fell Corruption don't really do a lot. In my opinion, the Rush minion with Divine Shield is good, but not really used because it goes random as well. And the Fell Corruption, there's just too many different things you need to get this active. Dealing 19 damage to all enemies and 5 to your other characters is okay in an AoE, so if you want to use that for PvE, then great. But you have to do too much. Like after your friendly orc dies, this turns into Shamanism, which is going to then heal instead of deal damage, but that isn't that great. As far as the equipments go, after the Glacial Blade being your priority, if the spellbook did +10 or +20, I know that's crazy, arcane resistance, this will be broken and be played in every deck at the minute because of how good arcane is, but that's not the case, so unfortunately spellbook is useless at the moment. And then Battlecry, give your characters +10 health, sounds good. The only trouble with this is the Battlecry. If this was start of game like Cookie, then this will be the one you want to filter into your deck instead of Cookie. Kind of, like the extra 1 health might not overweigh the abilities, but the Battlecry hurts this, being gives your characters 10 health on a Battlecry. It's just not very good. So definitely start with the Glacial Blade. If you are going to use this, you'll probably put it into an Orc build so that you can scale attack and attack with Blood Frenzy. It can be good. It's not a bad mercenary, but it isn't the best legendary mercenary in the game. So that's the way you want to upgrade him. You want to go with Glacial, Blood Frenzy, your abilities, and then the other 2 equipments. Next up is Guff. Now Guff has seen a ton of PvP play, not as much now because of how broken, once again, some of the other mercenaries are, but Guff was very good in a nature comp. and in other comps as well, actually. So it wasn't just nature, it was a buff human comp as well. So the nature one, you're using the living brambles, being able to nature combo repeat this, dealing 14 damage or 28 to a red unit. Twice is massive damage. That hits harder than the broken arcane comp at the moment. Unfortunately, the nature kind of hurts it over the arcane. The brambles was scaling this one, but now that's normal, and the battle cry now is pretty decent if you're playing this on the bench. So I would go for the battle cry totem equipment. Restoring 20 health to your characters is pretty decent, especially coming off the bench. But the way you're probably going to be playing this mercenary now would be in a human buff build, or some sort of buff build which is going to help your attackers in the late game. And if you're going to be playing it that way, then I suggest upgrading Blooming Shroom. Runic Slam gives 2+5 more. This is Runic Slam, so attack an enemy, death blow, give all your mercs on the battlefield and bench +5, +15, that would be with this one upgraded, which is huge stats, especially for a bench party which is going to come out and deal attack damage really fast. So that's kind of where you want to go. So for nature, I would go Bramble Totem first, but for the buff home human one, I would go for the Shroom, and then you go for Living Brambles and Runic Slam, depending on which comp you're going to want to use it for. Obviously, I think Living Brambles and the Totem is probably the better option at the moment, and then you go for your Ironbark being the other ability first, and then you go for the Ironbark buff after that. Okay, so next up we have Gul'dan. Now Gul'dan doesn't see much PvP at the moment, but luckily for Gul'dan, he has a passive equipment, which means he possibly will in the future if we get a little bit more fel support. So after an orc or demon dies, gain +4 fel damage. +4 is big. The Staff of Chaos is obviously his best equipment by far. So using that in a orc build where their summons could work in the future. So with that being said, getting extra fel damage and running it in a fel deck, you're going to want to go with Reign of Destruction being the first ability you want to upgrade, and then you go for the Fel Bolt and the Siphon Life after that. Siphon Life is probably the best ability by far because it heals all of your orcs and demons once dealing damage. If you hit into a red with this and deals 24, you're getting a lot of heals, but unfortunately there isn't many strong demon builds out there at the moment, and you're going to be playing this in a fel build, so you're not going to have all demons. For example, this is an orc, so it's going to have to be an orc demon sort of hybrid build, and that just doesn't exist at the moment. So definitely go with Staff of Chaos being equipment, then Rain, Fel Bolt after that, Siphon Life after that, and then the other two equipments, possibly the Siphon Life before the Blood of Manarath. But that being said, it doesn't see a great deal of play at the moment. It's not the strongest legendary mercenary we've got, but there is potential in the future, I think, and having that Staff of Chaos being +4 fel damage probably is the thing that is saving it. So next up we have Jaina. Now Jaina is a very good mercenary. This sees tons of PvP play, but recently it has been filtered out, or she has been filtered out by another specific mercenary, which I'll get into in a minute. But the reason Jaina was so good is because of this equipment, the Ice Block Talisman. First time this merc would take fatal damage, which means die, prevent it and become immune this turn. So this is huge, keeping it alive. And because you're keeping it alive, you're going to be ice flowing, which is gaining that +3 frost damage every turn. So you know you're getting a +3 frost damage the first turn, which is going to help your other units. This was in a frost build, obviously, and it did huge amounts of damage because the other mercenaries are more of a threat than this in the frost build, so she doesn't get targeted straight away. So you're going to be scaling up for at least 2 or 3 turns with ice flows, and then when she does eventually go to die, she's got a lot of frost scaling there, which means the opponent will have to eventually pop the bubble and then obviously kill her the following turn. So that is the equipment you're going to want to upgrade first and foremost. Then you go for Ice Flows in order to start scaling, and then I would suggest going for Water Elemental after that, and then Icicle, and then you work towards the other 2 equipments just to max her out. Next up is Kazakus. Now, Kazakus is a very strong mercenary as well. Being a rare mercenary, this sees huge amounts of PvP play, and that is thanks to building golems and the wildvine equipment. So, battle cry, give your friendly characters +4/+4 is a huge battle cry. The extra 4 health really does matter, and the extra 4 attack being so strong for a lot of units. Build a golem will be the first ability you want to upgrade. This has so much flexibility depending on what you're going against. You can use the rush golems to try and trigger Khadgar if you run in a Trigor comp, or you can use the 8/8 divine shields, which is going to help with a Yasharash comp. So there's flexibility with the builder golem. So that is the first and foremost equipment ability you want to upgrade. This really helps with Sylvanas comps as well, being on the bench. Shadow Claws deal 6 damage to a random enemy, repeat for each golem that has died. This is very strong, being able to kill off quite a lot of units in one clean swoop, especially if you're going up against some reds in the late game. Dealing 12 damage, say you've had 9 units die. This is going to repeat for each golem, so this is going to be 12 damage times 9 in the late game if you end up going up against reds, or 6 damage times 9 is huge. Plus, if you run it in a shadow comp and you do scaling of shadow damage, this is going to deal more damage. So Shadow Claws is very good as well, being a little bit on the slow side, being 6 speed, but still strong as hell. True Shape, there are occasions you want to use this when you've got a couple of big 20/20 taunts out and you just want to gain some health, but it's very rare, so you want to do this one last out of the abilities. And then the other 2 equipments you don't really want to be touching unless you have the spare coins to upgrade this to get him maxed. So Wildvine will be the first equipment you want to go for, definitely. Then go for Golem, Claws and True Shape, and then the other 2 equipments last. Next up, we have Khadgar. Now, Khadgar is one of the best mercenaries in the game at the moment. Khadgar is crazy good. The reason being is he has a turn 1 root all of your enemies. So Blizzard here, dealing 14 damage to all enemies and upgrade Half-Fire to grant +5 attack. Having the Bitter Chill, start of game, upgrade Blizzard and it refreshes 1. This obviously is going to be 0 cooldown. And once you upgrade Blizzard, like here, upgrade Blizzard to root all enemies, that means this is already upgraded because of Bitter Chill, so it's going to be turn 1 5 speed root. So if you're going up against a build that has attackers or even tokens that would usually attack that are quite slow, this is going to root everything on turn 1, which is crazy. That is just too good. It needs to be addressed, but or this needs to be slowed down. If you're going to root stuff, you're not doing it at 5 speed. You should be doing that at 10 speed, in my opinion. Next up, we have Half-Fire. Half-Fire is very strong, being able to give extra attack, which you're going to be doing it almost like in sequence. So you're going to Bitter Chill is going to upgrade your Blizzard. So then you use Blizzard on turn 1 to root stuff. You then Half-Fire on turn 2 because it's been upgraded, which is going to scale your units with attack as well, which will be the extra 5 attack from the Blizzard. And then you're going to go into Archmage Khadgar because this is going to upgrade your Arcane Surge, which makes this already upgraded once you've done these 2 abilities. And then he transforms into Khadgar, which is the Archmage Khadgar, which all of your abilities just get so much better. This will then be basically a 2 speed, which would scale your spell damage. And then you also have his weird all 3 ability equipment, all 3 ability within one move. And then you also have his 3rd ability, which you get to choose one to do, which is just crazy good. Khadgar is by far one of the strongest ones in the game. So the way you want to go is definitely go Bitter Chill, Blizzard, Half-Fire, Arcane Surge, and then the other 2 equipments as and when you want and have the spare coins. And last but not least for this video, we have Korrak the Blood Rager. So this is a fairly new mercenary. I think this is the one that came out just before Rattlegore. So this doesn't see any play at the moment. I tried to put this into a comp to try to make it work, but unfortunately it was underwhelming versus the comps I was going against. But the way I upgraded it and what I wanted to do with it was I upgraded Honor Bound first, so that Eat the Dead only increases when a friendly character dies, but it increases by an extra plus 12, which this Eat the Dead is gain 8 health and then gain a plus 20 for each character that dies. So with Kazakus, you can kill off 3 characters straight away. So he will gain 68 health at a 4 speed, which is crazy. That's a lot of health for 4 speed. And then if this gets attacked or loses health, it upgrades this Blood Rage, which is going to distribute damage to random enemies, increases for each of his missing health. So if he has a lot of health, and then this just scales a lot. Unfortunately, it wasn't very good. It didn't do that much damage, or when it did it to just one unit. It didn't distribute it fairly. It was just random, which makes that a lot worse. But I had to upgrade the Mountain Anger first, because this needs a way to attack so that you can take some of that health, because some mercenaries will just leave it alone until they can kind of either one-shot it or crit damage so that they don't take too much from the Blood Rage, or just kill it really fast so that the Blood Rage doesn't even have time to go off. So not very strong mercenary, but very unique, and I did really enjoy playing the comp with it in, but it just didn't do what I was hoping it was going to do. But the way you upgrade it, in my opinion, would be the Honor Bound, Eat the Dead, and then I went for the Anger, but I guess you can kind of go for both of these at the same time. This is scaling, so you don't really need to upgrade it to scale itself too fast, because it scales enough from losing health. So that's why I went with the Anger. So still probably stick with the Anger, then go for the Blood Rage, and then the other 2 equipments depending on if you want to use it in a different type of comp. So Blood Rage gaining Death Rattle doesn't seem too great. You don't really want to be healing, and the Winter X Strong, given extra attack, probably will be better in this situation. Okay, so that is it for part 1 of the priority upgrades for casters. I hope this video has helped you in your decision making when upgrading mercenaries. If it has, make sure you give this video a thumbs up and subscribe, especially if you're new to mercenaries, so that you can keep coming back to this channel and seeing new fun builds to play. I do a meta video every month as well, so that you know what's strong and what you can upgrade, or what stuff you want to work towards for the meta for this current time period. So it will be really beneficial if you did subscribe, not only for yourselves but for me as well. So thanks for watching this video. Part 2 will come on Monday, and I'll see you in the next one.